Hey friends! Taking your book from written to published is a bit more complicated than it sounds. You can easily end up spending hundreds or thousands of dollars along the way if you don't know what to look for. So, how much will it cost to publish your book? In this video, I'm going to break down every step required to get your book published and how much you can expect to pay for each step. We will compare the cost of doing everything on your own versus hiring out. Plus, I have a free worksheet for you to determine your publishing budget, so stay tuned. When I took my first book through the self-publication process, there were way more costs along the way than I expected. I didn't want to spend very much on my first book because I had no idea if I'd ever make the money back. Fortunately, I found a ton of free resources along the way, and I'm going to show you those. But we will also discuss the paid resources available so you can decide what approach is best for you. We don't necessarily want to sacrifice quality, but your book doesn't need to come out perfect the first time around. Once you've finished your book, you have 4 different options for publication. 1. Do it all yourself. 2. Hire out each individual step of the publication process. 3. Hire a self-publishing agency to complete all the steps for you. And 4. Go the traditional route and submit your book to a publisher. Since we are in self-publishing, we won't review the traditional route. So, what steps do you need to prepare your book for publication and get it out on the market? 1. Writing. 2. Editing. And there are 4 different types of editing: copy editing, structural editing, developmental editing, and proofreading. 3. Formatting. 4. Cover design. 5. Mock-up generation. 6. Creating your author website. And 7. Publishing your book. There is a final step, which is marketing, but marketing is a huge topic that would require several videos itself, so we're not going to discuss marketing in this video. As we analyze the cost of each step, we will not include marketing costs because your marketing budget will be highly variable. There are many free ways to market, and creating your author website is a great place to start. You can also post on social media, share free copies of your book, etc. But there are also many paid forms of marketing which we are not going to cover. If you choose to hire a self-publishing agency, please make sure to ask for a detailed list of services they provide in their packages. A good agency will help you with just about every step, including editing, cover design, formatting, and website creation. It is not unreasonable to pay a minimum of $3,000 to have all these services covered, and you'll soon see why. Many times you will pay much more than that for a high-quality publishing service. I put together a chart with each step of the process and estimated costs. Let's take a look at that chart now. So here's the chart that I put together. I went ahead and assembled the cost based off of a 50,000 word book. Larger books will increase the cost of some of these steps, including ghostwriting, editing, and formatting, and I'll explain that a little bit more along the way. So for writing, I'm assuming that if you're watching this video that you are the one writing your book. However, there are some people that get more into the publishing side of things instead of the writing side of things, and they want to hire somebody to write the book for them. If you are writing your own book or you already have it written, then you could have done that in a Google Doc, which is completely free. Just create your Google account, or you could use Microsoft Word, which most people already have, so I'm assuming you're not going to have to pay this at this point because you already have it. But if you don't, I would highly recommend getting Microsoft Word, and that's going to be $80 to $115, perhaps a little bit less depending on what version you're getting. The most recent would be about $115. If you hire somebody to write your book, you have about a 30,000 word count book, then you're looking at around $500 minimum, and that's usually if you're hiring somebody from Upwork, which is a freelancing site. And if you're hiring through a ghostwriting service such as Hot Ghostwriter, if you go to Google and you type in ghostwriting services, then you're going to be paying a lot more than that. It could be $600, $700, $900, $1,000 plus dollars to write your book. And like I said, that's just for a 30,000 word count. A lot of books, especially if you're writing fiction, are going to be a lot longer than that. Usually 60,000 minimum for fiction books. Unless it's like a quick read, like a quick chick flick romance type thing. Okay, so then for the editing, you've got 4 different types of editing that we mentioned. There's copy editing, developmental editing, structural editing, and proofreading. And when you're writing your first book, it's probably best just to do this yourself, because hiring somebody to do all these editing steps is very pricey. It gets really expensive really quickly. But your free options are just using the Google Docs spelling and grammar checks. They're really not very powerful, but they are free. Microsoft Word would probably be your best bet for your first book, using their spelling and grammar check, and then sharing the manuscript with friends and family to help edit. And then you can also invest in Grammarly, and it's got a monthly charge. It's $30 a month. It's a little bit cheaper if you just pay an annual or pay for an annual subscription. Then the monthly fee goes down to I think about $12 a month. So it's actually a lot cheaper. But there is a free basic version, which essentially does the same thing that Microsoft Word does with spelling and grammar checks, but having the more expensive features gives you access to different types of editing. Basically, it'll give you more suggestions. With proofreading and I think it's copy editing, they're focusing more on spelling and grammar, whereas like developmental editing is going to focus more on in structural editing, right? They're focusing on the structure of your book and kind of more like plot and how you word things. So there's a lot of different things that need to be fixed within your book, right? Now, if you're hiring somebody to do this, Wordy, I just looked up a few different ones. You could Google search. There's tons and tons of people who do professional editing. Wordy was $1,600 minimum. Editage was $2,400. Scribendi $1,700. And this is usually just for one round of edits. Does not include your final proofread as well. I looked up the website Scribendi right here for you, and it talks about some of the different types of editing that they do. It says they combine developmental editing and copy editing, which is pretty good, and especially if this is just your first book, that would be a really, really good edit. So if you're just paying for that package there, you'd be in a really good place. It talks about line by line editing, giving you a stronger, improved book, spelling and grammatical errors, inconsistencies. It talks about clarity and organization. So you can see there's lots of different types of editing that they help you with. And I wanted to show you this chart, this little graphic that they created. And it's not exactly what we're talking about, but it gives you just a brief overview of the writing and publishing process. You've got writing here, and you've got rewriting. This is after you get a book critique. Then editing, this is where they come in, they help you with the editing. Then you're doing revising, there's proofreading, finalizing, and then pitching, or you can go into publishing and marketing your book. So as you can see, there's a lot of different steps along the process, but they help you with a pretty good chunk of that editing. So the next step is formatting your book. And this is just making your book document look professional, so that when readers open up the book, that it looks like a professionally published book instead of just a Word doc. And a few options for this. You can try to do formatting within Google Docs, but I would not recommend this. It's free, but it is highly unprofessional looking. I love using Microsoft Word because, once you've paid for Microsoft Word, and like I said, most people already have it. So once you have it, then you can use something called this Styles tool, and it is awesome. If you haven't learned how to use it, it will save your life. And I'm gonna create a separate video for a lot of these things. I'm gonna teach you how to use many of these different tools. So make sure to subscribe and stay tuned. But just a brief overview of Styles. What it does for you is you can assign a style, for example, a heading style that you create, to all the headings within your book. And when you decide, if you're looking over that book and you think, I don't really like how those headings look, they don't look very professional, or maybe you want to make it look more artistic or more serious, then all you have to do is go to the Styles tab and you change the heading style, and it automatically updates all the headings in your document. You can do the same thing for your paragraphs, for bullets, for note sections. Very, very useful. I highly recommend using that. Now, the next option up from that is purchasing Vellum software. Again, this is all within your do-it-yourself column, so you're still doing your own formatting, but Vellum is a very user-friendly software that's also got some very powerful tools. I would say that is a step up from Microsoft Word. You can definitely get away with using Microsoft Word. I love to use it, but Vellum would be your next step up. The pricing, it's only a one-time fee, which is nice. You're not paying a monthly rate. For doing ebook formatting, you pay $199.99, and if you want to do your paperback plus ebook formatting, then you're going to pay $249.99. And I would highly recommend doing the paperback plus ebook because you're going to want to sell paperbacks and ebooks, especially if you're doing Amazon KDP, because they will do print on demand for you. Now, Adobe InDesign is another option. It's not as user-friendly. It's got a bit more of a learning curve. It's a little bit challenging to learn, but there's lots of tutorials out there. Adobe has lots of tutorials themselves. There's lots of tutorials on YouTube, and I will be creating a couple as well in the future. But this one also has some very, very powerful creative tools, and you can make your books look really cool. If you're creating a recipe book, for example, and you want to have some backdrops or watermarks, or you just want to have some really creative appearances to your book, then Adobe InDesign is a really good option for that. You can get really creative. Now, Adobe InDesign by itself is going to be $20.99 a month. There are some really large student discounts if you happen to be a student, or maybe your spouse is a student and they can purchase Adobe Creative Cloud for you. Then there are some really, really big student discounts. And if you're not a student and you want to actually have access to the entire Adobe Creative Cloud, which I would recommend, because this was also a very useful tool later on down the road when you're doing cover design and mock-up generators, and even your author website. It's just a really great creative tool. Then it's going to be $52.99 a month. I feel like I've seen that price change. I think it used to be higher like a couple months ago, but I don't know. All I know is that it is a little bit pricey, right? You're paying that on a monthly basis, but if you can get a student discount, that's great. If not, maybe try it out for just a month and see how you like it, and see if that's a tool that you want to invest in. Now, if you want to hire somebody to format your book, you can use Fiverr or Upwork. Both of these are freelancing sites, and this can be anywhere from $10 on up. And I would be super careful with Fiverr. I've tried hiring people through Fiverr before, and it's really hit and miss. You get what you pay for. If you're, lots and lots of people will offer services for $5, $10, really, really cheap, but then they would just put it into a Word document and kind of format it through a Word document, which is what you can do yourself. So if you're just gonna hire somebody to use a Word document, just don't. you can do that yourself through Microsoft Word. But if you do want somebody who's gonna perhaps use a Vellum software and you don't really want to learn that interface, or you just don't want to take care of the formatting or worry about that, there are some nuances to formatting, like widow and orphan control, that you need to worry about to make sure your book looks really professional. Then you can hire somebody. I would recommend Upwork versus Fiverr. They tend to be a little bit more professional. Plus, you can hire people. It's just a lot easier to look at their resumes and see what they've worked on. So Mayfly Design is another formatting service that I looked up. There's a lot available, a lot of different resources, but I noticed that their formatting service was $800+. So that's a lot of money. As you can see, this can get really expensive really fast if you're hiring somebody to do all the work for you. Now, cover design. This is super fun. It's one of my favorite parts about publishing. If you're doing this for the first time and you want to experiment with cover design, and especially if you are already an artistic person and you enjoy design and you enjoy creating layouts, then you can use Canva, and they have a free version. They also have a professional version that you can pay a monthly fee for. That's not super expensive, and they've got lots of fun tools to use. But even the free version has lots of great features. It's super user-friendly. You can learn it really quickly. And they have some layouts that are pre-made for you for ebooks. which is awesome. I think they do a really great job with it. And I'm also going to be creating a video about how to know what document size you need for a paperback book. When you are submitting your book, your manuscript to Amazon KDP, they analyze your page count and can tell you exactly what book size, what size you need for your paperback cover. So then you can design your own cover. It's actually really easy. It's called the KDP cover size calculator, pretty sure. Like I said, I'll be creating another video about that. Now, Adobe Photoshop or Illustrator are also really powerful tools for creating professional looking book covers. Prices are listed up here again. You can get Photoshop by itself, you can get Illustrator by itself, but by the time that you've got Photoshop and Illustrator and InDesign, then you might as well just pay for the entire Adobe Creative Cloud. And you're not just getting those, but you're also getting video editors and animation tools. It's just really cool. I love Adobe Creative Cloud. Super, super cool. And maybe at some point I'll put a link in this video in the description for you guys so you can get some sort of discount off. But I do not have access to one right now, but I will keep my eyes open. So it's a little challenging to learn. Like I said, Adobe Creative Cloud, any of their tools have a learning curve, but they're very powerful. And if you want to hire somebody to create your cover design, again, you can use Fiverr. They do have people offering, many people offering covers for $5, which sounds amazing because that's really cheap. But I tried doing that with my first book. I tried hiring somebody to create my cover, and I actually paid him like $25 or $27 in the end with tax, and I did not like it at all. I ended up creating my own cover after that, which is kind of how I got into learning these tools, especially Photoshop and Illustrator became very powerful tools for me. But I did not like the cover that somebody else created for me. They're not invested in your book like you are. They don't understand your book as well as you are. They're not going to read your book unless you find somebody who is highly professional and they know how to look through your book and understand your concept, and they're willing to communicate with you really directly. Just be really careful. You got to be really choosy when it comes to hiring people through Fiverr. Now, there's another site called 99 Designs, which is a lot of fun. They have prices $300 plus, but what's really cool about them is they have a bunch of people. You've got a couple different options, but one of the options you have is to submit your book idea or your book cover request, and then several different cover designers will submit their cover designs to you, and you get to choose which one you want to work with. So it just gives you a lot of different options to look at, and they are very professional. Mayfly Design is another one. See up here, I looked at them for formatting as well. They're one of the more expensive options, but they're also very professional, and their cover designs are $1,000 plus. So I would not recommend this for your first book, but if you're on down the line and maybe your book's doing really well and you're already making some decent profits off of it, then you can update your cover, which you can do as much as you want. It's really easy to update your cover to reload it up to Amazon or wherever you are selling your book. Then you can pay for a more professional cover design. Now, mock-ups, if you don't know what a mock-up is, a 3D mock-up, it's where I know that you've seen lots of these, they're all over the place, but a lot of times authors will get these mock-ups, and it's just a pre-made picture or design of a book that has your cover put into it. So let me just go ahead and show you real quick what they look like. Okay, so there's mock-ups for all sorts of different things, but here's the book mock-ups. And as you can see, you just put your cover image into the mock-up, and then you have this really cool professional looking book. And instead of just showing people this 2D image of your book, you can share this on social media. There's some where people are holding your book, which looks really cool. See that? Look at that. See the juice therapy benefits. That's cool. And it just looks so much nicer than just having your 2D image, right? And there's lots and lots of different options. And there's a couple different options for this. If you're doing it yourself, there's a site called DIYBookcovers.com. I put the link right here. You can copy and paste that. Oh, can't copy and paste. So you'll type it into your web browser. And it's called DIY Book Covers, like I said. But it's totally free, and they generate some pretty cool mock-ups that are free. Now, there's a lot of PSD mock-up files on the internet that are totally free. There's a lot of them, but you do have to have Adobe Photoshop to edit them, and you're gonna need to look up a tutorial to figure out how to add your cover in place of that image if you don't already know how to use Adobe Photoshop. But this is a really cool option. I've learned how to use that, and it just really opens up your world of possibilities with mock-up generators. Now, Placeit.net is just one of the mock-up generators that I found. That's the one I just showed you here, Placeit. And with this one, it's really user-friendly. It's very easy to put your book cover. You just upload the book cover image, and then they put it in the mock-up for you. And you just pay $7.95 per mock-up, or you can pay $14.95 a month and get as many mock-ups as you want. So that's another pretty inexpensive option. Okay, now creating an author website is not necessary for publishing your first book. You can publish it without another website. That's not an issue, but it's nice to have one as soon as possible, really, to start building your audience, to have a place where people can look you up when they find your book. They can type your name into Google, and hopefully your website shows up. But it does take some time for websites to build SEO, or search engine optimization, basically to build visibility on search engines like Google. And the sooner that you get your author website up and running, and the more that you do with it, so if you're doing blog posts on a regular basis about your books, or you're uploading your books to a page where people can easily access all of your books together, then it's going to start building SEO and gain visibility. And it takes, like I said, it takes a while for websites to gain visibility, but this is just a nice thing to start with, and it's really not very expensive. Domain names are very inexpensive. $12 a year is like nothing. Probably the cheapest option you have is to get a hosting service like Bluehost. I actually use HostGator, but Bluehost is also very user-friendly. It's a really good option. WordPress is basically the builder that you use. It's very versatile. There's a lot you can do with WordPress sites. And hosting is very inexpensive. The beginning pay or the beginning cost, usually for 1 to 3 years, it's going to be $2.95 a month. And then after that, I think it usually doubles. So you'd be paying more like $6 a month, but that's still not very much for hosting. There's a bit of a learning curve. It's a little challenging to learn. If you get Elementor or Elementor Pro on your WordPress site, that is a lifesaver. It makes it more of a drag and drop website builder, which is a lot easier to use. I'm not a coder, so that's what I use. I use Elementor Pro, which does have an additional cost associated with it, but there is a free Elementor version as well. Now, okay, a lot of these do have a free domain for 1 year as well, which means the first year you're not paying this $12 fee. This was one that I found. I haven't actually heard of it before. Jimdo, Jimdo, $9 a month, which is really cheap. This is another one of those really user-friendly ones. Squarespace, very user-friendly, $12 a month. Free domain, I'm assuming that means that the whole time you're using Squarespace, you have a free domain, which means you would never be paying this $12 a year. Wix, very user-friendly as well, $14 a month. A lot of web builders, I think, including Wix and Squarespace, allow you to have a free site with their branding. This basically means that you're not using your domain, you don't purchase the domain, basically. Okay, so this is all free. So it would look like, say your domain is authorbob. So you're going to be authorbob.wix.com, plus the Wix logo is going to be all over your site, like on the bottom, maybe the top corner, something like that. But if you are actually paying their monthly subscription fee, then it's just yourdomain.com. So authorbob.com. And then your Author Bob logo is on your site. So it just looks a lot more professional. It doesn't, nobody knows that you're using a Wix website. They just know that this is your website, right? It doesn't look so much like a newbie blog. It looks like a website. Now, web development, if you're hiring somebody to create your website for you, that can cost thousands and thousands of dollars. It can be very expensive, and I would not recommend hiring somebody to create the website entirely for you. Plus, it is extremely valuable for you to know how to operate your own website. Even if you decide to hire somebody on down the road to continue taking care of your website for you, it is so valuable for you to know how to do that yourself, because initially and even occasionally, if somebody else is taking care of your website, you're going to want to post content yourself. You're going to want to take a look at your website and really put you into it, because you're kind of your brand, and that's a really valuable skill to develop. Now, there's someone, she's actually a friend of a friend, so I don't know her personally, but one of my friends works for her, and she creates these beautiful pre-built website templates. She does use WordPress, so this would be if you have a WordPress site, and she uses Elementor Pro as well, and her site is called designforgoodness.com. Her pre-built templates are $4.97 each, plus she's created some free training videos on how to use them, and you can also contact her for a website consultation. Okay, now publishing. Do this yourself. You need to know how to upload and manage your books on Amazon, KDP, Draft to Digital, or whatever site or location you choose to publish through. I wrote this word for word because you need to know this. But you can technically find somebody to help you with the publishing part, and they'll basically help you upload it or get your book out to retailers and online booksellers, but I would not recommend it, especially with your first book. You need to know how to do this. If you're going to be doing self-publishing, you need to know how to do this. And I just put this little note. The hiring somebody means working with a traditional publisher, right? If you're submitting your book to a publisher, they're going to publish your book for you. Okay, so we come to the totals. Now, if you are publishing, doing all the steps of the self-publishing process yourself, it can be completely free. There are free options for every single one of these steps. Or the max with the chart that I built here is $461.98, which is really not too bad. You're just paying for tools that help you do your job better and more professionally. Okay. Now, if you're hiring out every step of the process, it can be a lot more expensive than that. Anywhere from $2,600 to almost $6,000 plus, okay? Big plus here. It can be a lot more expensive. You can pour a lot more money into that book. I wouldn't recommend this for your first book, okay? It's gonna be so messy. I would recommend making your book messy. That's honestly one of the biggest things that's one of my biggest recommendations, because a lot of us, when you hear about writer's block, that is caused by editing along the way. It's caused by trying to have the perfect document, the perfect book, the perfect manuscript right off the bat, and it causes a lot of stress and procrastination. Same thing goes with the publishing process. Even after you have your book written, if you get really caught up in the details and making your book perfect and making sure your cover design is perfect and asking everybody plus strangers, if they like your cover design and if they like your book, it's going to take you a really long time, and you're just putting a cork in all the learning that you could be doing. And keep in mind as well that not everybody is going to like your book. You're going to have some people that absolutely love it and they love your cover and they love the content. And then you're going to have some people that have some pretty harsh criticisms for you or critiques or whatever. And that's okay. Not everybody's going to like your book. So just get it out there. Just, make it messy. Publish it. You can always take it down if it really is just an absolute train wreck and you publish it and you're getting horrible reviews and it's just just not great, then you can always take it down. You don't have to keep it published. But I don't think that's going to happen. If you really love what you've written and you really have put your heart into it and you've enjoyed the process, then I think you're going to find some people that enjoy it as well. Now there is a whole lot more that we can talk about that's very related to marketing, this big word right here. And that is you can make hundreds of videos just on marketing itself, and this is going to largely determine the success of your book. All of these steps in the self-publishing process are very important as well. You need to have a quality book. Okay, that's basically what this is creating a quality book that you're going to present to readers. But marketing is what makes that book visible to readers, right? Nobody's going to read your book if they don't know it exists. But we will cover that in another video, plus videos. It's going to take a while to explain marketing. Now, you do have the option of hiring an agency. I mentioned this before, that will take you along every step of the process. But as I said before, you can pay $3,000 plus. I said $3,500 plus here because that is not an unreasonable price to pay, and you can see why here. Okay, it can get really expensive for somebody to take care of all these steps for you. Now, I did include in this document recommendations for your first book. I explained them along the way, so I won't go over this. But again, this whole document, I have linked in the description so you can access it. It's got everything typed up. Plus, at the bottom here, I have this budget planning worksheet, okay? And it's basically this chart here, but it's empty, okay? So you can write what you want to do yourself and which steps you would like to hire out. And you can write what tools you'd like to use, what cost you're expecting, how much you want to pay somebody. And down at the bottom here, you can add up all your costs and better understand what your publishing budget is, okay? Because as I've said, it can be very hard to know how much money you're going to spend when you start this process, and that can be a little scary. So it's nice to know, to have a really good idea of how much money you're going to be investing in your project. And then you'll need to set aside some money for your marketing budget as well, because that's going to be very separate. But there are some free marketing options as well. So if you're really, really on a tight budget for your first book and you're just trying to learn the process, then don't be afraid to use your free options and just learn and experiment. And like I said, we'll talk about marketing options and budgeting for marketing later. Keep in mind that often you pay for quality when you hire out. Paying a very small fee for a book cover may be very tempting, but if you get a terrible book cover in return, you'd be much better off just making one yourself. I would recommend doing everything yourself the first time you publish a book and taking advantage of the free resources. It really doesn't make sense to invest a lot of money into your first book when you don't yet have a firm grip on the process. You also don't know how well that book is going to do. Plus, we haven't even touched on marketing, which plays a huge role in the success of your book. I don't want you to get too caught up in trying to perfect your first book. Let it be messy. By completing every step yourself, you will learn a lot and develop some very useful skills. The next time you publish a book, you'll have a better idea of what services you'd like to do yourself and what you'd like to hire out or hire someone else to do. There are other steps we could include in this list, including getting an email provider to start building your fan base and sending out advanced review copies or ARCs. However, these fall more under the category of marketing and don't directly affect the publication of your book. Following the steps outlined in this video will take your book from written to published.